Hey everyone, welcome to How to Write the Future podcast. I'm your host, Beth Barany. I am a creativity coach, science fiction and fantasy writer, and writing teacher, and obviously host of this podcast. I do this podcast to help fiction writers, specifically science fiction and fantasy writers, but also anyone who cares about the future. I care about helping you shape positive, optimistic futures, because with our imagination, which is such a powerful tool, with our imagination, we can help remake the world, which is my passion and excitement. So I am so glad to welcome today Rachael Clarke, a science fiction author who lives in Manitoba. Welcome, Rachael.
Hello. Happy to be here.
So glad that you are. And I understand that you just launched your first full-length novel. Is that right?
That is 100% right. Yes, it's very exciting. I've published a couple books before, but this is my very first ever full-length big novel. So yeah, I'm very excited.
That's so great. No, I see it's called Race to Novus. Did I say that right?
Yep, you did. Race to Novus. Yep.
You show us, for those of us watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see this beautiful thing. Awesome. And it's a woman next to a horse. And your writing name for this novel is Rachael Clarke. Fabulous. I'm so curious. I love the premise of this book. Can you tell us a little bit about the book, like the blurb, and what inspired you to write this novel?
Absolutely. Well, a little bit about the book. Basically, there's a down on her luck cowgirl, actually from the prairies on Earth. And she's got herself into a bit of trouble. She's in a lot of debt and on bad terms with her family, and she's feeling desperate. She also has a bionic horse named Hercules, aka Herc for short. And it's like he's beloved to her, and he's under threat of being sold by the family for money. And so this spurs her on. Basically, she's on this precipice. I need to decide what I want to do here. I can't stay in this situation I'm in. I need to try and find a new future for myself, and I can't let my horse be sold. And so she whisks her way to the edge of explored space to a planet, just barely explored planet, and enters this nebulous race to Novus. Yeah, it's crazy. It takes them through an uncharted forest, which morphs into a jungle, and there's like toxic air, and there's creatures that come into the mix and unexpected peoples, and there's lots of intrigue and lots of adventure, tons of thrills. It's a fun ride, I guess is how I would describe it.
It's like Western science fiction.
It's definitely a Western sci-fi Western, however you want to say it. And then there is also some elements of fantasy and also like a hint of romance for those that like a little bit of a slow burn romance that goes on. So there is that. And it's supposed to be a trilogy. So I'm actually working on the next books. And the inspiration for this book, actually, funny enough, I don't know if it's funny. To me, it's funny. I write a lot of short stories. I do a lot of contests, and I love writing prompts. I really love them. I get a lot of my ideas that way. And through this contest that I had entered called the Writers' Games, which is held by the Writers' Workshop, I participated in this many times, and they had big world building event. And so I'm like, oh, world building, yay. And so I'm passionate about sci-fi, and I was thinking, I love horses so much. And I started thinking, what would horses be like in the future? What does that look like? What would happen? Like my brain started like spiraling and brainstorming with this. What would a horse be like in the future? And like, I thought about genetic refining, like how would they change? Would they be full-on robots? Would there even be horses? And there was all these things. And of course you go down this rabbit hole, right? And that's where it all started. It started with the horse. And I came up with Herc. He's a bionic horse with 4 prosthetic legs. He's got an ocular implant that changes with his moods. I call it the mood ring eye. And I came up with who's going to own, who's going to ride him, who's going to love him. And so the dynamic duo of Finley Rucker and Herc, and then the story just took off from there. The world started creating it. And it was just a short story, but I couldn't get it out of my mind. I loved it so much in the world, and I became a little bit obsessed with it. And I just knew that this was going to be the novel. I knew it had to be. There was so much more there.
Yeah. Love how you love prompts. I saw on your website you have 2 prompt books, and I know writers really love those. I've created a prompt book as well. Yeah. And yours look really fun. I haven't had a chance to take a look, but I encourage everyone who loves prompts to take a look. So cool. I just love that you are so enthusiastic too about world building, and I offer a world building workbook for people, and because that can be a challenge. And it sounds like for you, it's really a strength, and it's so exciting to hear how you did that and how you just went step by step and imagined horses in the future. Do you have horses of your own?
Oh gosh, I wish. Oh, I was that girl that always asked for the ponies, and I collect Breyer horses. Like I've got models all over the place. I've got all kinds of like horse models and like
So
no.
show
What
us,
was that?
put a few in the camera in the front of you. Yeah. Beautiful. Are these are specific kinds of horses?
There's different ones. Yeah, there's like a workhorse, and then I've got, let's see, here's a Frisian. So Hercules from my novel isn't a Frisian horse. So this is an actual Frisian.
Gorgeous.
Oh, yeah. And I actually painted a couple to look like Herc from my book, which is like totally nerdish. I know, but I totally did it. So
Merchandise. That's great.
yeah.
Oh, I love it. I collect dragons, so I have them all
Nice.
different kinds, different cultures. Yeah. That's so cool. And
Yeah.
so
I'm a cowgirl at heart, I guess you'd say,
Yeah.
but I just sadly never actually became one.
Yeah. And do you live out in the plains? You live in Manitoba. And for those of us in the US may not know, but Manitoba is in the middle of Canada, right?
Yeah, we're definitely part of the prairie land of Canada. We're in that zone. There's other areas that are probably more cowboy country, you might say, but we definitely have lots. We have rodeos and all kinds of fun stuff around here too. Yeah.
Yeah.
The land of the big skies.
That's so evocative right there. The land of the big skies. Oh, I love it. Great. And so how do you balance, you mentioned that you're a stay-at-home mom, a writer, and you mentioned you're also an indie press owner. Does that mean you publish other people's work?
I'm just very barely starting. I've started my own company. So when I decided back in 2020 to start self-publishing my books, which started with my children's chapter book, The Big Old Bike, which I wrote and illustrated. That was my very first foray into publishing. And so I decided I wanted to create my own imprint rather than just saying self-published book. I wanted it to be something. I wanted to create my own company. And so I founded Page Turn Press, which is my little tiny micro indie press. And I've have like 4 or 5 other books now, self-published, and they're all just by me. So I've done a short story anthology, my prompt books. But this past year, when I started, I bumped up into the next phase and slowly growing very incrementally. And as I said, I'm very passionate about short stories. So what I did is I opened up a call for fellow authors to submit their short stories to me for an anthology, a themed anthology, which was all about deadly flora. So if you've ever wondered a life where plants are against you, not for you, and not peaceful, this book is what you definitely want to be reading. It's sci-fi, dark fiction, lots of different things like that. So that was my first foray into that. So I'm publishing other people's work now. I'm keeping it at the short story format right now, so an anthology. So yeah, there's going to be more to come. So that's exciting. So that's my little micro press experience. And gosh, the balancing is always fun. That's exactly the right word for it, is balance. And it can be hard to balance it. So I do have 2 young kids. One's 8 and one's 5, almost 6. And they're the love of my life. But obviously it's busy. I'm a stay-at-home mom. So I used to be a police officer for about 10 years back in the day. I've been out of the game now since 2017-ish. And I did get PTSD. I had some really hard times from that and some health complications that came along with it. So there were some struggles there, some healing that had to take place, and it's still taking place. But over time, I started thinking, I need to start finding a new passion here. What am I going to do next? And so I moved into, I'm going to chase those old dreams. I've always written, I've always painted, I've always been creative. Let's do that. And that's what spurred me on to do all of this and start writing more seriously. And being a stay-at-home mom, it was a challenge in a way because now all of a sudden I'm splitting my attention. And so what I do is obviously, I think a lot of moms that also write will do this. I find little bits through the day. If there's times where the kids are playing and they're busy and they're occupado, then I can sneak in and open up my Google Docs and start writing something or working on something. So I take my time where I can. Yeah. But then I usually carve out that time at the end of the day. When they're in bed, I'll go downstairs and I'll write for a couple hours or whatever. Sometimes it makes for late nights, but we do what we do. And then now that the kids are getting a bit older and they're starting to get in school, my youngest is like half time at kindergarten. I actually have a couple days a week where I can write and focus on some things like that. Once your kids are in school, it becomes a lot easier because then now it becomes more like a job. If you're not working elsewhere, you can make that your job. And that's where I'm at. I look like my part-time job. So it's worked out nicely that way. And I do drive my family crazy. Sometimes I get a little bit obsessive with my writing. You get into a zone and you're going like, Yeah. So I do have to rein myself in a bit. It's that balance word again, right? But I do NaNoWriMo. I don't know if you're familiar with National Novel Writing Month. Okay. So I do that. And that's like I barter with my husband for that month. So it's okay. I won't be as crazy with my writing if you let me go nuts in November, So anyway, yeah.
I love it. I love that you barter because my next question or like a follow-on question was, what kind of support do you have around you so that you can be continually working on your writing? And it sounds like you barter with your husband. And do you have other forms of support? Some people have writing groups or teachers or coaches or where you can say, bye-bye, I'm going to class, or bye-bye, I'm going to critique group, or whatever it is. Or bye-bye, I'm having a podcast interview. Like to do now.
Yeah. Obviously, yeah, they're all about on podcast interviews. They're excited. They're like, woo, go ahead. My husband, I got the kids. Let's do your thing. I've been really blessed in that way with having a supportive kind of family, like helping cheer me on and all that fun stuff. I also have writing groups. So I really encourage people. Writing groups are amazing. So both online and in person. And I think in person is really valuable too. Like, and sometimes depending on where you live, that can be a challenge because not everywhere has writing groups. I live in a smaller city, so there's not a lot of writing groups, but there's a couple and I'm part of both. So yeah, once a month we meet up for both of these groups and I try and go whenever I can. And it's nice. Everyone writes different stuff. They're just really, it's not like a sci-fi or fantasy group. It's just a writing group. Yeah. So it's good in a way too, because you can broaden your horizons and hear all kinds of different writing styles and different like genres or poems or just like anything. And we get to learn from each other and support each other and also get to know and also uplift other creatives that are living in your communities. Yeah, I really like that. And I do have some a pretty awesome writing group, a couple of them. I have my own Facebook group that I've started called Write State of Mind. So if anyone's looking for a little writing group, feel free to pop on over. We're small and we're there and we're a decent little group. And I also part of a group called WAB, just WAB. But anyways, I'll give them the shout out here. I've been in that group since I started back to writing and it's my writing family. We really support each other. So no, I don't think I would be half of where I am maybe today without having found them, to be honest with you. It's been good that way.
That's really great. And is WAB also online or that's the in-person?
Yeah. Yeah, they're definitely findable for sure. They have limits on how many members they have and whatnot. But yeah, people can find it, WAB, and feel free to apply if you want to get involved.
That's great. We'll make sure both of the links are in our show notes so folks can check those out. Be sure to check out Rachael Clarke's website and her fabulous, thrilling sci-fi Western called Race to Novus. The book is now available. You can buy it on Amazon. You can get a hard copy and a signed book plate plus swag. I really think you will enjoy it. And if you're not sure, you can always click to read an excerpt here. Also, I invite you to check out my world-building resources for fiction writers, the PDF report. Just go ahead and use the link in the description and come on over here and sign up to get your own copy. You can download that and use as a guide to help you overcome any overwhelm that you might have in world building for your science fiction or fantasy novel. I have over 30 prompts in the report, and it's actually a workbook for you to use. That's it for this week. Write long and prosper.